The ways in which visual material can complement and extend other research methods in anthropology have multiplied beyond earlier sequencing approaches that recorded integral events or whole single units of behavior. There are a number of genres, styles, and techniques commonly referenced when making or talking about ethnographic films.
Salvage ethnography is associated with early efforts in ethnographic film to capture lifeways at risk of dying out or already largely out of practice due to forces of colonial suppression, globalization, technological development, or cultural change. While this genre has a troubled history, many films being made today are still documenting the diversity of languages, lifeways, and cultural practices at risk of being eradicated.
Expository documentaries aim to inform viewers about a topic. This style is often associated with old-school voice-of-God narration and talking heads, but it's still used today, sometimes to quite powerful effect.
At one of these waterholes, some young men have gathered to prepare themselves for the Gerevol festivities. This festival is a kind of marriage market, or a celebration of love and beauty. During the festivities, which may last as long as 10 days, they will compete against each other in a beauty contest, and the young women will be the ones to choose a mate. Most of them are married girls who disappear for a few nights into the bush with a man of their choice and return him afterwards. The man has the right to refuse, which, however, is seldom exercised.
Also known as observational documentary, direct cinema, or fly-on-the-wall filmmaking, this approach records daily life in long takes without intrusion. The viewer should almost forget they are watching a film, absorbed in the details of what's unfolding. Fred Wiseman is famous for this style, which he has used to explore the culture and experience of vastly different organizations, from a French strip club to a palliative care hospital to the University of California, Berkeley to a Florida shelter for survivors of domestic violence. Far from impassive, through careful editing, cinema verite can be persuasive, poetic, or both.
In participatory filmmaking developed by Jean Rouch, the filmmaker does interact with subjects rather than unobtrusively observing them, and this interaction is quite evident in the finished film. Meaning is explicitly created by the collaboration or confrontation between filmmaker and contributor, and film subjects help craft the film's narrative.
أمسك الكاميرا وأصور بحسه إشي عالم تاني يعني بالتصوير. كنت أحضره حسيت إنجاز كبير ياي أنا سلام حاملة كاميرا فيديو وصورت.
The thinking was if more people saw what we see. But you can't bring 1 million people to see this reality. So we started giving cameras to a few of the families.
بس أنا لأنه مآمن إنه هاي الكاميرا هي سلاح.
Ethnographic docufiction, also developed by Rouch, takes its participation a step further by blending documentary film with fictional narrative, often by having participants improvise in predetermined roles or scenarios to gain anthropological insight into socio-cultural dynamic.
Assistindo isso, ela não vai ter noção do que é verdadeiro e o que é falso, é isso? Ela vai achar que é documentário mesmo, ou não?
Não. É assim, que vai ser apresentado como uma ficção. É um filme colaborativo, então muitas pessoas vão participar com suas histórias.
gay quando você não sabia que era uma transexual. Então aí, por exemplo, o teu personagem, ele vai agir já com preconceito, ele já vai falar que alugou, ele vai olhar, vai dar uma desculpa.
Na hora que veio atender, eu olho e falo que já foi alugado, acho que alguma coisa assim.
Ao mesmo tempo que eu sei que eu estou protegida pela Meg, que é uma personagem, eu sei que aquilo ali é tudo uma grande mentira, porque aquilo sou eu mesma.
Although participatory videos can provide marginalized communities with opportunities to organize, self-represent, and co-create, their objectives and motivations may differ from that of the filmmaker, which may limit their socially empowering effects.
Ela é uma transexual, é meia que parecida comigo, mas não, com certeza não sou eu. Interpretar a Zilda não é difícil, o que é difícil é a história, as coisas que ela tem que passar, né?
Indigenous or Native media is made by filmmakers from inside their own communities, explicitly challenging histories of appropriation and misrepresentation by outsiders.
Native truths refers to a series of big ideas such as we have the right to govern ourselves, we speak for ourselves, truths such as the land shapes who we are. As a Native historian, what's important to me is that the public's understanding of Indigenous history and rights has important implications for Indigenous communities in the present and in the future. We're engaging in a process of righting historical wrongs, thinking about their relationship with Native communities, and thinking about what it would be to develop a better path forward.
Such films may be based on culturally specific understandings of narrative, aesthetics, time, and authorship, and often support Indigenous communities in their fight against cultural extinction, economic and ecological decline, and forced displacement.
One filmmaking technique favored by some indigenous filmmakers and others coming from marginalized or previously silenced groups is visual autoethnography. Here, filmmakers turn the camera on themselves, using personal experience to reflect on wider cultural, political, and social phenomena.
I was mute, tongue-tied, burdened by shadows and silence. Now I speak.
Applied visual anthropology uses visual media to build awareness about social issues affecting a particular cultural group. Videos, photography, or other artworks allow individuals to tell their own stories in their own words. This media can be oriented towards a foreign or outsider audience to create an emotional bond between people who have never met and draw international attention to issues faced by affected cultural groups. Or it can be geared towards a local insider audience, used to foster dialogue and supportive, collaborative problem solving.
We make films in order to show them in the communities or nearby communities where we have worked. And we choose social issues that we determine with collaborators from the communities. And we determine different topics. So questions like HIV is an obvious one, but migration, alcoholism, spousal abuse, serious problems that the Maasai have. And we make what we call trigger films, 3-minute evocative, non-resolved documentary/narrative pieces. We have a focus group, 20 people maybe. We show it and then we talk about it. And we film the focus groups.
Developed by anthropologist Robert Lemelson, visual psychological anthropology is a filmmaking methodology that brings the fieldwork techniques and concerns of psychological anthropology to the screen. This means that it's most interested in topics that deal with the intersection of psychology and culture, seeing how culture impacts the personal experience of identity, gender and sexuality, psychological development and mental illness, altered states, disability, stigma, addiction, and more. And it uses person-centered and clinical interviewing techniques developed by psychological anthropologists to address these topics. Visual psychological anthropology also accounts for the intersection of culture and psychology in its film style. It seeks to move viewers by crafting a narrative structure that addresses what is most emotionally meaningful to film participants and using different visual strategies to capture their internal experience.
The work that I'm doing in film is what's increasingly coming to be called sensory ethnography, which is a sort of non-narrative, non-verbal filmmaking style, and not necessarily one where someone is telling you a story, but one in which you're making sense of it as you go along.
In general, sensory ethnography assumes that meaning does not come from language, but from our entire physical being in the world. So all of the senses, sight, hearing, smell, and taste, are avenues of awareness and signification. While sensory ethnography has taken numerous forms, in film it has been associated with a contemporary take on direct cinema that uses long, unedited shots to absorb sensory information and illustrate how the whole body is engaged in culturally shaped occupational, devotional, and everyday practices, whether consciously or unconsciously. Filmmakers such as Verena Paraval and Lucien Castaigne-Taylor are well known for the use of this technique in their work at the Harvard Sensory Ethnography Lab.
Filmmakers have been using these methods and styles since the mid-20th century. Other, newer approaches have emerged in the last 20 or so years, embracing further developments in digital technology. Multimodal simply means incorporating different modes, but in visual anthropology it refers to projects that incorporate different forms of media or function across different linked media platforms. These can be as straightforward as websites that include writing, still photography, and video, to more interactive formats like mobile apps and games, web-based social networking sites, or immersive VR. Multimodal projects seek to engage users beyond the classroom, turning to practically ubiquitous mobile technology to redefine fieldwork and access new audiences.
Anthropologists have also seen the potential in multi-part or series work. The idea here is that spending a longer amount of time with people on screen will lead to a more nuanced, contextualized, and experientially intimate sense of their lives. Rather than simply a matter of extending a narrative, this approach allows for a more associational exploration of a topic, affording the room to explore related issues and connections that stretch beyond the confines of any single piece.
A new generation of visual and sensory anthropologists have developed work in animation, illustration, and non-linear media formats like 360-degree film and virtual reality. Virtual reality allows ethnographers to capture, perhaps more authentically, a rich contextual fabric that the viewer can participate in to varying degrees. Augmented reality, also known as AR, allows the researcher-practitioner to bring 3D imagery and spatial audio together via a digital interface with other potential forms of knowing, such as tactility, through placing the audience in a particular environment. Based on this survey of styles, how do you see form and content interacting in ethnographic film? Do you think certain formats or styles are more suitable for exploring certain themes or working with certain individuals or communities? Think of a potential topic for an ethnographic film. Now, pick 2 or 3 of the styles or techniques explored in this video. How would these different approaches affect the way the topic is portrayed?
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to learn more, here are some useful resources in the description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get your regular dose of anthrodorphins.
If you want to think more deeply about the approaches to ethnographic film, not just what the different styles look like, but what different approaches might mean for the participants, filmmakers, and audience members, stay tuned for part 3 of this series, Debates in Ethnographic Film.